What would you do if kindness cost you everything? Sarah Martinez clocks in at 6 a.m., same as every morning, for 3 years, her Riverside Market vest hanging loose over yesterday's jeans, coffee breath mixing with floor cleaner as she restocks the cereal aisle, single mom, 2 jobs, rent due in 5 days, but she still saves the day-old sandwiches for the stray dog behind the dumpster. The German Shepherd mixed ribs showing through matted fur waits by the loading dock every morning at 6:15 like he's punching a time clock too. Sarah tears the ham sandwich in half, tosses. It gently watches those amber eyes soften with something like gratitude, not pity, not charity, just recognition. One survivor to another. Store manager Brad Kellerman, 32. Years old, polo shirt tight across his gut, clipboard permanently attached to his palm, catches her through the security monitor. His voice crackles over the intercom. Sarah Martinez to the office. Sarah Martinez to the office. She knows that tone. The same one he used when Mrs. Chen needed help reaching the top shelf, when teenage David got dizzy from not eating lunch, when anyone showed basic human decency. The office smells like energy drinks and failed ambition. Kellerman leans back in his chair, points at the monitor. Freeze frame of Sarah, hand extended toward the dog company policy. Clearly states no feeding of stray animals on store property. Creates liability, issues, attracts more strays. Costs, money. Sarah's voice stays steady. He's just hungry. Kellerman's laugh. Sharp as breaking glass. So are lots of things. Doesn't mean we feed them. You want to run a charity, do it on your own time with your own money. The warning slip slides across the desk. Yellow carbon copy like a parking ticket for caring too much. Next. Time it's termination, Kellerman says. No exceptions, no sob stories, no second chances. Sarah signs the paper, walks back to aisle 7, stocks the breakfast bars, her hands moving automatic while her mind races through grocery bills and daycare costs. And the dog's amber eyes. 3 days pass. The dog still waits 6:15 on the dot. Sarah walks past, pretends not to see. The way he follows her shadow along the window. But on Thursday morning, rain hammering the parking lot. The dog shivers against the brick wall, water pooling around his paws, and Sarah breaks. She tears the sandwich, drops. It quick glances at the camera, tells herself Kellerman doesn't start until 7. The intercom crackles 5 minutes later. Sarah Martinez, bring your vest. Bring your time card. Don't bring excuses. Kellerman's office, same smell, different energy. He slides a termination form across the desk, already filled out, already dated, insubordination, violation of company policy, effective immediately. You chose a dog over your job, Kellerman says, leaning forward like he's sharing wisdom. Hope it was worth it. Sarah removes her vest hands over her name tag, walks through the automatic doors, into the rain. The dog follows her to the bus stop, sits beside the bench while she calls her sister, explains why she'll be late picking up her daughter from school. What she doesn't say is how the rain feels like freedom, even when freedom tastes like fear. What she doesn't see is the black sedan parked across the street, engine running, windshield wipers keeping time with her breaking heart. Inside the car, retired Marine Colonel James Sarge Patterson adjusts his rearview mirror, speaks into his phone. Found her, he says, voice rough with purpose. The one you told me about. Yes, she's exactly what you said. On the other end, a familiar voice, gravelly, from decades of movies and mountains. Sylvester Stallone leans back in his study chair, surrounded by boxing memorabilia and military commendations. Good, keep watching. Make sure she's safe. We move tomorrow. Sarge ends the call, watches Sarah board the bus, the dog trotting alongside until the doors close. 24 hours. He thinks. 24 hours and everything changes. The bus pulls away, carrying a fired grocery clerk, who chose compassion over compliance. What she doesn't know is that her small act of feeding a stray dog has been captured on more than just store security footage. Someone else was watching. Someone who knows the weight of loyalty, the cost of standing, Up when others sit down. Someone who spent decades learning that real strength isn't about throwing punches, but about catching people when they fall. Tomorrow the phones will ring, the cameras will roll, and Sarah Martinez will discover that sometimes kindness doesn't cost everything. Sometimes it pays dividends she never imagined. But tonight she counts her last grocery store paycheck while rain patters against her apartment window and wonders what comes next. The video goes live at midnight, grainy. Security footage, black and white pixels that change everything. Sarah feeding the dog. Kellerman's finger pointing the termination scene playing out in digital silence across 10 million screens. The caption reads, "Simple store manager fires single. Mum for feeding hungry dog. Corporate greed versus human kindness." By dawn the phone calls start, reporters wanting quotes, activists demanding boycotts, customers cancelling loyalty cards, while Sarah sleeps unaware that her private shame has become public. Outrage, her sister Maria bangs on the door at 7 a.m., laptop clutched against her chest. Eyes wide with something between terror and amazement. "You need to see this," she whispers. "Sarah, you're famous." The video autoplays. Sarah watches herself lose her job in high-definition comments scrolling faster than she can read. "This is disgusting. Fire the manager. Boycott Riverside Market. Justice for Sarah. Where can we donate?" Her phone buzzes, text from unknown number. "We stand with you." Another buzz. "You did the right thing." Another, "Keep your head up." The local news van pulls up at 8:15. Reporter in perfect makeup, cameraman adjusting his lens, while Sarah hides behind her bedroom curtains. Channel 7 wants a statement. Channel 12 requests an interview. The newspaper calls 3 times in 10 minutes. Sarah turns off her phone, makes coffee with shaking hands, tries to explain to her daughter Emma why strangers keep knocking on their apartment door. "Mommy lost her job for being nice to a doggy," Emma says. Matter-of-fact 5-year-old logic cutting through the chaos. "That's right, baby. But being nice is good," Emma continues. "Daddy always said be nice to animals." Sarah's throat tightens, her ex-husband's voice echoing through Emma's words. "One of the few good things he left behind. Being nice is good." Sarah agrees, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. The knock at 10 a.m. sounds different, softer but more confident. Sarah peers through the peephole, sees a man in uniform, not police military. She opens the door chain, still attached. "Ma'am," he says, voice, respectful, weathered face, kind. "I'm Colonel Patterson, retired Marines. I'd like to talk about what about doing the right thing," he says. "About people who notice when someone stands up for those who can't stand up for themselves." Sarah unhooks the chain steps onto the balcony, closing the door behind her Emma's cartoons, providing background music to whatever comes next. Colonel Patterson doesn't look like the reporters downstairs. He looks like someone who's seen real problems, real solutions, real consequences. "You don't know me," he begins, "but someone asked me to keep an eye on you. Make sure you're okay. Someone who believes that kindness shouldn't be punished. Someone who thinks the world needs more people like you." Sarah laughs, bitter sound in morning air. "People like me are broke, unemployed, famous for all the wrong reasons." The colonel shakes his head. "People like you are rare. That's why they matter. That's why we protect." Before she can ask, his phone rings. He glances at the screen, nods, once answers with military precision. "Yes, sir. She's holding up fine." "Yeah, the media's here." "No, sir, no problems." "We move when you say." He ends the call, looks back at Sarah with something. "Like pride change is coming," he says. "Big change. You just need to trust the process." "What process?" Sarah asks, but the colonel is already walking away. Down in the parking lot, Riverside Market customers stage an impromptu protest, cardboard signs reading, "Rehire Sarah, corporate cruelty stops here. Dogs deserve dignity too." The stray dog, German Shepherd mix, sits beside the protesters, like he understands that his breakfast started something bigger than either he or Sarah could have imagined. News crews, Multiply 3 vans now, reporters doing stand-ups against the backdrop of Sarah's apartment building. This is Channel 12 with breaking coverage of the grocery store firing that has sparked nationwide outrage. Social media explodes. #justice. For Sarah, trending #2, behind only a celebrity wedding, but in Hollywood, in a mansion overlooking the City of Angels. Sylvester Stallone watches the coverage with different eyes. He sees what others miss. The way Sarah's shoulders carry more than unemployment. The way her apartment speaks of struggle, not just setback. The way she chose compassion over compliance, even when compliance meant survival. He picks up his phone, dials a familiar number. Tommy, he says, voice carrying decades of authority. Get the jet ready. We fly to Phoenix tonight. The other end protests, something about schedules and commitments and prior obligations. Cancel them. Stallone interrupts. This is more important. This is what we do when the system fails. Good people. He hangs. Up walks to his window, sees the sprawling city below. Millions of people, most of them just trying to get by, to do right, to survive another day. Tomorrow, he'll meet Sarah tomorrow. The real story begins. But tonight, he makes calls to people who owe him favors, to networks that need content, to foundations that fund hope. Because sometimes a viral video is just the beginning. Sometimes the real power comes from what happens after the cameras stop rolling. And sometimes an old fighter learns that the biggest battles aren't won in rings, but in grocery store parking lots, where single mothers choose kindness over keeping quiet. The phone rings again, Colonel Patterson reporting in. She's stronger than expected, he says. The kid's handling it well. Media's respectful so far. Good. Stallone replies, keep watching tomorrow. We show them what happens when ordinary people do extraordinary things. The second day breaks. Ugly corporate lawyers descend like vultures in expensive suits, briefcases full of cease and desist orders and reputation management strategies. Riverside Market's PR firm releases a statement at 9 a.m. Employee violated clear policies. Company maintains standards. Liability. Concerns paramount. No exceptions for anyone. The local news anchor reads it with practiced neutrality. But her eyes say something else when the camera cuts away. Sarah's phone buzzes back online. Despite her wishes, Emma needs to eat bills, need paying. Hiding won't help. Unknown number text message. You brought this on yourself, hope it was worth it. Another buzz. Different number, same message. Stop playing victim. Then another and another, until her phone becomes a weapon against her. The apartment complex. Manager, Mrs. Rodriguez knocks at noon, uncomfortable smile, eviction notice in hand. I'm sorry, Sarah, she says. But corporate called about the news coverage, the protests, the negative attention. 30 days, Sarah reads aloud. To vacate premises, breach of lease terms. Disruptive behavior, I fed a dog. Sarah says, voice hollow. I gave a hungry animal half a sandwich, Mrs. Rodriguez won't meet her eyes, I know, Mija, but they pay the bills, not me. The protesters have gone home, work and school and real life, calling them back to their own problems. The parking lot sits empty except for cigarette butts and cardboard signs. Soggy from last night's rain, Sarah loads Emma into their battered Honda drives to the grocery store where she used to work to buy milk and bread. With her last $20, Kellerman stands behind the customer service counter, arms crossed, watching her shop like she might steal something. The other employees, people she worked beside for 3 years, avoid eye contact, afraid association might cost them their own jobs. At the checkout, teenage David, the one who got dizzy from skipping lunch scans, her items, hands shaking slightly. I'm sorry, Miss Martinez, he whispers when Kellerman's not looking. What happened? It wasn't right. Sarah forces a smile. You take care of yourself, David. Don't let them change who you are. Outside the store, the stray dog waits like he's been there all along. Tail wagging when he sees her, Sarah looks around, checks for cameras, for witnesses, for anyone who might turn kindness into consequences. The dog's amber eyes hold no judgment, no corporate policy, no liability concerns. Just hunger and hope. She tears her own sandwich drops. It quickly hurries Emma to the car, but someone's watching from across the street. Not Colonel Patterson this time. Brad Kellerman on his lunch break phone already in hand, recording everything. The video uploads before Sarah reaches her apartment. Caption, reading fired employee, continues policy violations, refuses to learn. Comments pour in, split between support and savage criticism. She got what she deserved. Why doesn't she just stop making herself a martyr, playing the victim card? But others push back, standing up for what's right. Corporate bullies, leave her alone. The war wages in comment sections and social media threads, while Sarah sits in her living room wondering how feeding a hungry dog became a national debate. Emma colors quietly at the kitchen table, drawing pictures of dogs and people holding hands. Why is everyone mad? Mommy, Sarah joins her daughter, picks up a crayon. Not everyone, baby. Some people understand that being kind is more important than following rules, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Emma repeats like a prayer, like a promise. The phone rings. Landline, this time number Sarah recognizes, but hoped she wouldn't see. Her mother's voice, tight with disapproval, crosses 3 states to deliver judgment. I saw the news. Media, you always were too soft, too trusting, too willing to help people who won't help you. This is different. Mom, no, it's not. Her mother continues. It's the same pattern. You give and give until there's nothing left. Now look where it got you. Unemployed, evicted, famous for being foolish. Sarah hangs up, sits in the sudden silence, while Emma's crayons scratch against paper, creating a world where kindness doesn't come with consequences. Knock at 4 p.m. sounds official. Sarah opens the door to find 2 men in dark suits and practiced smiles. Ma'am, we're from Morrison Klein Law Firm representing Riverside Market. We'd like to discuss a settlement. Settlement for what? Defamation, they say. Damage to reputation. Loss of business. Emotional distress. Sarah laughs, actual laughter, because the alternative is screaming. You want to sue me for being fired for feeding a dog? The lawyers exchange glances. One pulls out a thick document, places it on her table. This is a cease and desist order. All media appearances, all social media posts, all public statements must stop immediately. And if I don't, legal action, they say in unison, like a rehearsed threat. Sarah doesn't sign, doesn't speak, just closes the door and turns the deadbolt. Through the window, she watches them get into their car, make phone calls to people with power and money and influence. What they don't see is the black sedan parked 2 spaces away, Colonel Patterson behind the wheel, taking pictures of their license plates. His phone buzzes, text message from a number the lawyers would recognize if they knew who was really watching. Tomorrow, the message reads, we end this. Sarah feeds Emma dinner, mac and cheese from a box, while protesters' voices echo from the street below. New ones now, different energy, angrier chants about corporate greed and worker rights, and the American dream deferred. Before we continue, comment below where you're watching from. Let us know if you've ever chosen in kindness over compliance, because tomorrow everything changes. Tomorrow the real power shows up. And Brad Kellerman learns what happens when you mess with the wrong person's definition of justice. Tonight, Sarah tucks Emma into bed, reads her a story about brave princesses and loyal dogs and happy endings. But outside her window, forces gather that will make fiction feel like documentary. Tomorrow, the mountain comes to Mohammed. Tomorrow, Hollywood meets small-town cruelty and shows it what real strength looks like. Day 3 dawns with sirens, not emergency but opportunity, as news vans multiply like digital locusts, feeding on human drama. Sarah's story spreads beyond local coverage. CNN picks it up. Fox News responds. MSNBC analyzes, while she hides behind drawn curtains, counting her remaining grocery money, $63, between her family and food banks. Emma asks innocent questions. Why can't we go outside? Why are people taking pictures? Why does the TV keep showing Mommy? Because sometimes Sarah explains doing the right thing makes people upset, the good people or the bad people, both baby both. Her phone hasn't stopped buzzing since dawn. Job offers from competitors, interview requests, legal advice and threats. One message stands. Our different tone, professional but warm Miss Martinez. This is Rebecca Chen, calling on behalf of a benefactor who wishes to remain anonymous for now. We'd like to discuss your situation and possible solutions. Please call when convenient. You're not alone in this. Sarah stares at the number, area code 310, Los Angeles. Hollywood money, Hollywood problems, Hollywood solutions. She doesn't call back, not yet. Too many sharks swimming in friendly water. The eviction notice tacked to her door flutters in. Desert wind 30 days, becoming 27, becoming a countdown to homelessness. Mrs. Rodriguez won't look at her in the hallway, guilt and necessity warring across her weathered face. I'm sorry, mija, she whispers when no one's listening. But they threaten to cancel the lease on the whole building, corporate pressure trickling down. To working families who can't afford to stand on principle, Sarah understands, nods forgiveness, even as her world shrinks smaller day by day. The grocery store across town offers her a job, minimum wage. No benefits, take it or leave it. But when she arrives for the interview, cameras follow, protesters gather, customers complain about the circus manager, pulls the offer before she fills out the application. Can't have this drama, he explains. Bad for business. You understand. She understands. Perfectly, kindness is contagious, but so is punishment. At Emma's school, pickup becomes a gauntlet. Other parents whispering, pointing, judging, some supportive. You did right, stay strong, we're with you. Others less kind, making a scene over a dog, embarrassing. The community teaching children the wrong lessons. Mrs. Patterson, Emma's teacher, pulls Sarah aside after dismissal. I wanted you to know, she says, Emma's been asking lots of questions about right and wrong, about standing up for those who can't stand up for themselves. Is that bad, Mrs. Patterson smiles. It's beautiful. You're raising a thoughtful child. Don't let them take that away. The words hit harder than intended because Sarah feels it slipping, her certainty, her courage, her ability to believe that doing good leads to good things. That night, Emma draws. Another picture, Sarah and a dog holding hands under a rainbow with the words, Mommy is brave, written in purple crayon. But Sarah doesn't feel brave lying awake at 2 a.m., calculating rent and groceries and daycare costs against unemployment benefits. That won't start for 2 weeks. The math doesn't work, never has, never will. She thinks about her ex-husband who left when Emma was 2, said he couldn't handle the responsibility, the pressure, the constant worry about money. Maybe he was right, maybe. Some people aren't built for this kind of fight. The knock comes at 3 a.m., soft but insistent. Sarah checks the peephole, sees Colonel Patterson still in uniform, expression serious. Ma'am, he says when she opens the door, we need to talk. Things are about to change, big things. What kind of things? The kind that make local news, national news, the kind that show corporate bullies what happens when they pick on the wrong person. I'm just a grocery clerk, Sarah whispers. Nobody special, nobody powerful. Colonel Patterson shakes his head. You're exactly who we've been looking for. Before he can answer his phone, buzzes, he glances at the screen, nods once he's here. Patterson says, landed 20 minutes ago, private jet, Sky Harbor Airport. Who's here? Someone who knows about fighting when you're outmatched. Someone who believes that real strength isn't about size or money or corporate lawyers. Someone who's been watching your story and sees something worth fighting for. Patterson hands her a business card. Heavy, stock, expensive printing, simple black letters. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., Phoenician Resort, Presidential Suite. Come alone. Come ready to learn what happens when Hollywood meets Main Street. Sarah stares at the card. Turns it over, finds handwriting in strong. Script, Every champion was once a contender who refused to give up when giving up would have been the smartest thing to do. She recognizes the quote from a movie she watched with her father years ago. The signature below the quote makes her hands shake. Sly Stallone, not printed, handwritten, personal, like a promise, like a threat to everyone who thinks kindness is weakness. Sarah closes the door, leans against it, heart hammering against her ribs. Emma sleeps peacefully in the next room, unaware that tomorrow her mother's small act of feeding a stray dog will intersect with forces she can't imagine. Outside the apartment, Colonel Patterson gets back into his black sedan, reports to his phone. She'll be there, he says. She's stronger than she knows. On the other end, that familiar voice, gravelly with purpose, responds with certainty. Good, tomorrow we show them what happens when you mess with people who choose courage over comfort. The line goes dead. Phoenix sleeps under desert stars, while in hotel suites and corporate boardrooms, men with power prepare for war, but they don't know what's coming. They don't understand that some fights aren't about winning or losing. They're about standing up, when standing up is the only choice that lets you look at yourself in the mirror. And tomorrow Sarah Martinez will learn that sometimes the cavalry comes disguised as movie stars with real scars and bigger hearts than Hollywood ever imagined. The Phoenician resort rises from Scottsdale Desert like a mirage made real marble and gold, intimidating wealth that makes Sarah's Honda look like an apology. Valet parking costs more than she spent on groceries last month. The elevator to the presidential suite climbs higher than her courage. Each floor, a reminder of how far she's traveled from grocery aisles to whatever this is. Colonel Patterson waits in the hallway, nods once, knocks twice, opens the door to a world Sarah's only seen in magazines. Floor-to-ceiling windows frame Camelback Mountain leather furniture, arranged around a coffee table, covered in newspapers, all featuring her story. And there, in the center of controlled chaos, sits Sylvester Stallone. Not the movie star, not the action hero, but a man in his 70s, reading glasses perched on his nose, studying documents with the focus of someone who's fought real battles. He looks up, removes his glasses, stands with the deliberate movement of someone who's earned every ache, every scar, every gray hair. Sarah, he says, voice softer than she expected. Thank you for coming. She can't speak, can't process that. This legend knows her name, requested her presence, believes. Her story matters enough for private jets and presidential suites. Sit down. He continues, gesturing to a chair that probably costs more than her monthly rent. We need to talk about what happened, about what's going to happen, about why this matters. More than you know, Sarah finds her voice barely a whisper. I don't understand. Why are you here? Why do you care about a grocery clerk who fed a dog? Stallone settles into his chair, leans forward, elbows on knees, posture of someone sharing secrets. Because, he says, 37 years ago, I was broke, sleeping in bus stations, selling my dog because I couldn't afford to feed him. The room goes quiet. Even the air conditioning seems to pause. I wrote a script about an underdog boxer. Everyone said it was garbage. Studios wanted to buy it, but only if I didn't star in it. Sarah nods. Everyone knows this story, Rocky, the ultimate underdog tale. But here's the part they don't tell in the documentaries. Stallone reaches into a leather briefcase, pulls out something. Wrapped in black velvet. The day I sold Butkus, my bull mastiff, for $40 to a stranger at a liquor store, I thought I'd lost everything. He unwraps the object, reveals a collar-worn, leather brass nameplate reading, Butkus. I got him back when Rocky bought him back for $1,500 from the same stranger who thought I was crazy. But I never forgot the feeling of choosing survival over loyalty, of breaking the most important bond, because the world told me I had to. Sarah stares at the collar, understanding beginning to dawn. You didn't break the bond, she says. You chose your friend over compliance. Exactly, Stallone replies. Just like you chose that dog over your job. The difference is, I had the luxury of being wrong temporarily. You're facing permanent consequences for being right permanently. Colonel Patterson speaks from his position by the window. Tell her about the investigation. Stallone nods, sets the collar carefully on the table. We've been watching Riverside Market for months. Labor violations, discriminatory practices, illegal termination patterns. Your firing wasn't about feeding a dog. It was about finding an excuse to eliminate someone who made Kellerman look bad. Sarah's mind races back through interactions with her. Former boss, the way he treated elderly customers, teenagers, anyone who needed help, Mrs. Jen, who needed the top shelf. David, who got dizzy from hunger. The pregnant woman who asked for a chair. Every kindness became a target, every human moment. A policy violation. We have testimony from 7 former employees. Patterson continues, all fired. For helping customers beyond the minimum requirement. All minorities, all women, all single parents, all people who couldn't afford lawyers. Sarah feels anger, building not at her situation, but at the pattern. The systematic crushing of compassion. What do you want from me, she asks. Stallone leans back, smile playing at his lips. We want you to be yourself tomorrow when the cameras roll. Cameras. Every major network, print media, social media influencers. They're all coming to Riverside Market for the biggest press conference this town's ever seen. And you're going to tell your story while we tell ours, about corporate bullying, about systematic oppression, about what happens when ordinary people refuse to surrender their humanity. Sarah's hands shake slightly. I'm not a speaker. I'm not comfortable with crowds with cameras. You don't need to be comfortable, Stallone says. You just need to be honest. Tell them why you fed the dog. Tell them what it cost. Tell them why you'd do it again. Because you wouldn't. You. Sarah thinks of amber eyes waiting by the dumpster, of Emma's drawing of kindness being the right choice, even when it's the hard choice. Yes, she whispers, I'd do it again. Then that's all you need to say. The rest, Patterson adds, we handle legal team. Media strategy, corporate pressure. We've got resources Riverside Market can't imagine. Sarah looks around the suite at the power and influence arrayed on her behalf. Why, she asks again, why me? Why this? Stallone picks up. Butkus's collar, runs his thumb over the worn leather, because he says every generation needs to be reminded that strength isn't about dominating others. It's about protecting them, especially when they can't protect themselves. And sometimes he continues standing up, looking out at the mountains. Sometimes the best lessons come from people who never intended to teach anything. They just intended to do right and trusted the universe to handle the consequences. Tomorrow the universe gets some help. Sarah nods, feels something settling. In her chest, not confidence exactly, but purpose. Whatever comes next, she won't face it alone. And somewhere behind a dumpster, a German Shepherd mix waits for breakfast, unaware that his hunger sparked a revolution. Morning breaks like a movie premiere. Over Riverside Market's parking lot, satellite trucks line the street, cables snake across asphalt, cameras perch on every angle, while reporters practice their opening lines. This is unprecedented. Channel 7's anchor speaks into her microphone. A Hollywood icon taking on corporate America over a grocery store firing. Sarah sits in the black sedan, watching the circus grow larger by the minute. Her hands won't stop shaking. Colonel Patterson adjusts his rearview mirror, catches her eyes. You ready for this? No, Sarah whispers. I'm not ready for any of this. That's what makes you perfect for it, he replies. Real courage isn't about being ready. It's about doing what's right. When you're terrified of the consequences, the limousine arrives at 10 a.m. Exactly black and sleek, cutting through the media crowd like a shark through shallow water. Sylvester Stallone emerges first, wearing a simple dark suit, no Hollywood flash, no designer labels, just quiet authority that makes cameras click like machine guns. He surveys the gathered press, the protesters who've returned, the curious crowd of ordinary people who took time off work to witness whatever this becomes. Then he walks to Sarah's sedan, opens her door, offers his hand. Ready? He asks. Sarah looks at the sea of faces and cameras and corporate lawyers hovering at the crowd's edge. Emma's at school safe with Mrs. Patterson, who promised to explain everything when she gets home ready. Sarah says, surprised by the steadiness in her voice. The podium stands centered between the market and the media microphones clustered like electronic flowers waiting to broadcast. Truth or consequences to the world, Stallone approaches first, the crowd quieting with movie theater reverence. Ladies and gentlemen, he begins, voice carrying without amplification. 37 years ago, I was homeless in New York City, sleeping in bus stations, selling my belongings to survive, including, he continues, my best friend, a dog named Butkus, who I sold for $40 because I couldn't afford to feed him. The crowd goes completely silent. Even the cameras stop clicking. I thought at the time it was the smart thing, the practical thing, the only thing I could do. I was wrong, Sarah Martinez. He gestures toward her, made the choice I should have made. She chose loyalty over practicality, compassion over compliance, humanity over policy, and she was fired for it. The crowd murmurs, phones emerge, recording everything for social media, immortality. But this Stallone's voice rises slightly, isn't just about one woman, one dog, one termination. This is about systematic corporate bullying designed to crush human decency in service of profit margins. Colonel Patterson steps forward, thick manila folder in his hands. We have documentation, he announces, of 17 similar terminations at Riverside Market locations across 3 states. All employees who showed exceptional kindness to customers, all minorities, single parents or elderly workers, all fired for policy violations that were selectively enforced. The media erupts, questions shouted over each other, microphones thrust forward like weapons. Sarah feels the moment approaching when she'll need to speak, to justify her choice to the world. Stallone raises his hand, silence falls like a curtain. But before we talk about corporate malfeasance, before we discuss legal ramifications, before we address systematic discrimination, let's hear from the woman who started this simply by choosing kindness over convenience, Sarah Martinez. He steps aside. The world is listening. Sarah approaches the microphone cluster, her voice catching on the first word, I. She begins, starts again. I never meant to start anything. I just saw a hungry dog, and I had half a sandwich. The crowd leans forward, collective breath held. Every morning for 3 years I clocked in at 6 a.m., restocked shelves, helped customers, tried to do my job well. And every morning for 2 months, that dog waited by the dumpster ribs, showing eyes, hopeful, just wanting someone to notice. He existed. Her voice grows stronger. More certain, I fed him because that's what you do when you see suffering and you have the power to help. I got fired because my manager cared more about liability than humanity, but I'd do it again. The words ring across the parking lot. Cameras capture the moment when ordinary becomes extraordinary. Because Sarah continues, we teach our children to be kind to animals, to help those who can't help themselves. Then we go to work and follow policies that punish those same values. Mr. Kellerman, she looks directly at the store where her former boss watches from behind tinted windows. You fired me for feeding a hungry dog. You called it policy violation. I call it being human. And if being human costs me my job, my apartment, my reputation, then that says more about your policy than it does about my character. The crowd erupts, applause, cheers, car horns, honking, support. Sarah steps back from the microphone, shaking again, but different now. Not from fear, but from adrenaline, righteousness, the strange power of speaking truth to corporate authority. Stallone returns to the podium, waits for quiet questions. He says simply, the first reporter shouts over others, "What's your legal strategy?" Colonel Patterson steps forward. We're filing federal complaints with the EEOC Department of Labor and pursuing civil rights violations. Another voice. What do you want from Riverside Market? Stallone smiles grimly. Accountability, he says. Sarah's job back with back pay and apology. Policy changes that protect employees, who show basic human decency. And he pauses for effect, a commitment to hire a new manager who understands that corporate success shouldn't require surrendering your soul. The questions continue for 20 minutes until Stallone calls an end. Thank you, he says. This isn't about publicity or politics or Hollywood versus corporate America. This is about remembering that behind every policy, every termination, every bottom line are human beings trying to do right in a world that often punishes. Goodness will be back if necessary, as often as necessary, until this is made right. The crowd begins to disperse, media packing equipment, protesters planning next moves. Sarah stands beside the podium, watching her story become something larger than herself. The stray dog emerges from behind the dumpster, approaches cautiously, tail wagging at familiar scent. Sarah looks around, no cameras focused on her, no managers watching. She reaches into her purse, pulls out a sandwich, tears it in half drops. It gently, some things she whispers to amber eyes that understand gratitude without words. Some things are more important than policies. The press conference aftermath hits like a tsunami of consequence. By noon, Riverside Market's corporate hotline crashes under the weight of angry calls. By 2 p.m., their stock price drops 12%. By 4 p.m., the board demands answers from executives who thought firing a single mother would stay local news. But Sarah doesn't see the corporate chaos unfolding in boardrooms. 3 states away, she sits in Emma's school pickup line radio, playing her own voice back to her from that morning's press conference. "I'd do it again," she hears herself say, voice stronger than she remembers feeling. Other parents wave, honk horns, flash. "Thumbs up and peace signs, Mrs." Patterson, Emma's teacher, approaches the car window, smile bright as desert sunshine. She's been talking about you all day, proud as punch, telling everyone her mama is brave. Emma bounds toward the Honda backpack, flying face glowing with 5-year-old. "Celebrity status, mommy," she shouts, climbing into her car seat. "Mrs. Patterson says you're famous for being nice." "That's right, baby." Sarah fastens the seatbelt. "Sometimes being nice makes you famous." The drive home takes longer than usual. Traffic backed up around their apartment complex, news vans still circling like electronic vultures, but something's different in the crowd. Energy shifted from curiosity to support. Homemade signs read, "Justice for Sarah," and "Kindness wins," and "We stand with single mums." Colonel Patterson waits by their front door, phone pressed. To his ear, expression unreadable. Sarah Parks helps Emma gather her school projects, approaches with caution. "Good news," Patterson says, ending his call. "Very good news. Kellerman's been terminated, effective immediately. Corporate call 20 minutes. Ergo Sarah stops processing the words. Fired, terminated, for cause bringing negative publicity to the company, creating hostile work environment, violation of equal opportunity policies. Patterson hands her an official letter on corporate letterhead. "They want to offer you your job back, department manager position, 20% raise, full benefits, and a formal apology." Sarah reads the letter twice, legal language, dancing around admission of guilt while offering everything she lost and more. "There's more," Patterson continues. "Stallone wants to see you tonight, something about long-term solutions. The meeting happens at sunset. Same presidential suite, same expensive view, but different energy." Stallone sits surrounded by contracts, legal documents, and what looks like architectural plans. "Sarah," he says, standing as she enters, "how does it feel to win?" "I don't know if I won," she replies. "Honestly, I just wanted to feed a dog." "That's exactly why you won," he responds. "People who fight for principles instead of profit usually do." He gestures to the documents spread across the coffee table. "Riverside Market offered you a manager position." "Yes, turn it down." Sarah blinks, confused. "But that's what we wanted. My job back with an apology." Stallone shakes his head, walks. to the window overlooking Camelback Mountain. What we wanted was justice. What they're offering is damage control. There's a difference. He turns back, faces her with something like parental authority. I'm starting a foundation, Animal Welfare Worker Rights. Corporate Accountability. Patterson steps forward, thick folder in his hands. We want you to run it. National Director, 6-figure salary, full benefits, travel budget. But more importantly, he continues platform to make real change. Not just one grocery store, one termination, one dog, all of them everywhere, every time someone chooses profit over people. Sarah sits heavily in the leather chair, mind reeling. I'm not qualified for that. I don't have education, experience, connections. You have something better. Stallone says you have integrity that can't be taught, bought, or faked. You made the right choice when it cost you everything. That's the only qualification that matters. The foundation. Patterson explains, starts with $5 million in funding. Stallone's donation plus matching funds from other donors who believe in the mission. Your story went viral because people are hungry for examples of doing right. When doing right is hard, Sarah thinks of Emma, coloring pictures of brave princesses and loyal. Dogs of the stray, waiting by the dumpster every morning, trusting that kindness exists in a hard world. Of Mrs. Jen needing help, reaching the top shelf. Of David getting dizzy from hunger. Of every person who's been punished for caring more than policy allows. What would I have to do? She asks. Tell your story. Travel the country. Meet with workers, activists, legislators. Show them that standing up for what's right isn't just possible, it's necessary. And sometimes, Stallone adds, when you stand up, the whole world stands with you. Sarah looks at the contracts, the salary figures, the job description that would transform her. From fired grocery clerk to national advocate. But mostly she thinks about Emma, learning that kindness has consequences, good ones and hard ones, but always worthwhile ones. I accept, she says quietly. Stallone smiles, reaches into his briefcase, pulls out Butkus's collar, places it on the table between them. Then this belongs to you now. Reminder that loyalty isn't weakness, even when the world tells you it is, especially then, outside the window. Phoenix sprawls toward mountains, millions of lights representing. Millions of people trying to do right in circumstances that don't always reward righteousness. Tomorrow, Sarah will call Riverside Market, decline their offer with polite professionalism. Tomorrow, she'll start planning a foundation that protects people who choose compassion over compliance. But tonight, she drives home to Emma, who's drawn another picture of dogs and people holding hands. And for the first time in months, Sarah believes that happy endings aren't just for movies. They're for ordinary people who do extraordinary things like feeding hungry dogs, when feeding hungry dogs costs everything. 6 months later, the Compassion Foundation operates from a converted warehouse in downtown Phoenix, 23 employees working phones, computers, legal briefs, media campaigns, all fighting for people who chose kindness over keeping quiet. Sarah's office overlooks the floor-glass walls so she can see every case, every victory, every setback in real time. The walls display photos, letters of thanks, newspaper clippings from victories across the country. Walmart employee in Tennessee reinstated after being fired for helping elderly customer load groceries. Restaurant worker in Michigan promoted after foundation lawyers challenged termination. For giving free meal to homeless veteran factory supervisor in Ohio, cleared of disciplinary action for refusing to ignore safety violations. Each story, different details, same pattern. Corporate policies crushing human decency until someone stands up, says no more. Emma sits at the small desk in Sarah's office, coloring quietly after school, drawing pictures that now include office buildings and conference rooms alongside dogs and rainbows. Mommy, she asks, looking up from her artwork, why do people Get in trouble for being nice. Sarah sets down the case file. She's reviewing, joins Emma at the small table. Because she explains some people think following rules is more important than helping others. But that's silly. Emma responds with 5-year-old logic. If the rules are mean, you should change the rules. Exactly, Sarah agrees. That's what we do here. We help change the mean rules. The intercom buzzes. Colonel Patterson's voice crackling through. Sarah Stallone's here for the quarterly meeting. Send him up. Stallone enters carrying coffee and what looks like architectural plans. Energy of someone who's been building something important. How's our national director, he asks, setting down the papers. Tired, Sarah admits, but good tired. Like we're actually making difference. The numbers prove it, Patterson says, entering behind Stallone folder full of statistics. 300 cases opened, 87 victories, 21 policy changes at major corporations, but more importantly, he continues, media coverage, social awareness. Other organizations copying our model. Sarah nods toward the conference room. Let's talk details. They settle around the table. Emma continuing her coloring while adults discuss quarterly reports, funding projections, expansion plans. The foundation has grown beyond Sarah's wildest imagination. Corporate sponsors who want to be associated with ethical business practices. Legal team of 12 attorneys working pro bono. For cases that matter, media relationships that turn individual stories into national conversations. But it started, Stallone reminds her, with one woman, one dog, one sandwich shared when sharing cost. Everything. He unrolls the architectural plans, spreads them across the table. This is why I wanted to meet today. Sarah studies the blueprints, building design that looks like community center mixed with corporate headquarters. What is it? The Sarah Martinez Center for Corporate Accountability. Stallone explains. Phoenix headquarters, conference facilities, training programs. Legal clinic fully funded. Patterson adds construction starts next month. Sarah stares at the plans, her name in architectural lettering above the main entrance. She begins, voice catching. I don't deserve this. Stallone reaches across the table, covers her hand with his. Every person who chooses courage over comfort deserves recognition. But this isn't about you anymore. He gestures toward Emma, still coloring peaceful in her corner. This is about her generation learning that standing up for what's right doesn't just cost you things. Sometimes it builds things, important things, that outlast individual stories. The center will train workers about their rights, corporate managers about ethical leadership, lawyers about cases that matter more than billable hours. Sarah walks to the window, looks down at the warehouse floor where young people answer phones, file complaints, research cases, change laws, all because she fed a stray dog. Emma appears beside her, tugs on her sleeve, holds up a new drawing. Look, Mommy, she says proudly. The picture shows a large building with people holding hands around it. Dogs and cats and birds scattered throughout, a sign reading, Help Center, in careful, kindergarten letters above it all, a banner stretching across the page, Kindness Wins. Sarah kneels down to Emma's level, studies the detailed artwork. Tell me about your picture. Emma points to different figures, explains each detail. This is you helping. In people, this is the nice man with the movies. This is me when I'm grown up helping too. She points to a small figure near the bottom, German Shepherd sitting patiently by a food bowl. And this is the doggy who started everything. Sarah hugs her daughter and feels tears she didn't expect. What she sees in Emma's picture isn't buildings or foundations or corporate accountability. What she sees is hope transferred from one generation to the next, the belief that kindness matters, that standing up changes, things that ordinary people can build extraordinary solutions. Stallone and Patterson join them at the window, looking down at the work continuing below. 6 months ago, Patterson observes you are unemployed. Single mother fired for feeding a dog today. You're running a national organization, changing corporate culture, inspiring legislation tomorrow. Stallone adds, who knows what becomes possible? Sarah thinks about the stray dog who still waits by her apartment every morning for breakfast and conversation, who now has a name, courage, and veterinary care and warm bed on cold nights. Who doesn't know he started a movement just by being hungry and trusting that someone would notice. Outside the window, Phoenix spreads toward Mountain City full of stories, waiting to be told, stories of people choosing right over easy compassion, over compliance, courage over comfort, and at the center of all those untold stories, a foundation built on simple truth. Sometimes feeding a hungry dog is about more than the dog. Sometimes it's about feeding hope in a world that's always hungry, for people who remember what matters. 2 years pass, like pages turning in a story that writes itself. The Sarah Martinez Center stands, completed glass and steel, reaching toward desert sky, but rooted in something deeper than architecture. On the dedication day, hundreds gather in the lobby beneath a mural painted by local students. It shows a woman kneeling beside a dog, while around them circles expand like ripples in still water. Each circle contains faces, workers, families, children, activists, all connected by invisible threads of courage passed hand to hand, heart to heart. Sarah stands at the podium, 7-year-old Emma beside her wearing a dress the color of hope. The crowd includes faces she recognizes: David, the teenager from Riverside Market, now in college, studying social work; Mrs. Chen, who needed help reaching the top shelf, now volunteers at the center's legal clinic; 3 former Riverside employees who found jobs at companies with better policies, kinder cultures; Colonel Patterson in dress uniform, medals, catching lobby lights; and Stallone, sitting in the front row, Butkus's collar displayed in a place of honor on the stage. 2 years ago, Sarah begins her voice carrying easily now across crowds. I was fired for feeding a hungry dog. I thought my story ended there. The audience listens with the attention of people who know how stories can change when someone refuses to accept the ending they're given. But stories don't end with one person, one moment, one choice. They continue through everyone who hears them and decides to write their own chapter. She gestures toward the mural, toward the faces gathered in the lobby. This center exists because a dog was hungry and I had half a sandwich. But it continues to exist because of every person who believes that kindness isn't weakness, that standing up for what's right creates more than it costs, that ordinary people can build extraordinary things. Emma steps to the microphone, reaches up to adjust the height. My mommy, she says in her clear 7-year-old voice, taught me that being nice is the most important job, even when people say you're wrong, even when it's scary, even when it costs money or time or trouble. She looks out at the crowd with the confidence of someone who's never doubted that kindness wins. So this building is for everyone who wants to keep being nice, even when it's hard. The applause starts small, builds to something like thunder, like celebration, like promise. After the ceremony, after the photos, after the interviews and handshakes and congratulations, Sarah walks to her office on the 3rd floor. Through the window she can see the original warehouse where it all began, where 23 employees became 200, where 300 cases became 3,000. Her desk holds framed photos. Now Emma, at various ages, always smiling, always drawing, always believing in happy endings. The center's first annual report showing corporations changing policies rather than face foundation lawsuits. A letter from Congress about pending legislation inspired by their work. But the photo that matters most sits in the center position: Sarah and Courage, the German shepherd, who started everything, now grey around the muzzle, but still waiting every morning for breakfast and conversation, still trusting that kindness exists in hard places. The phone rings, Patterson's voice on the intercom. Sarah, Channel 12, wants to do a follow-up story. 2 years later, where are they now? Sarah considers the question, where are they now? a foundation touching lives across all 50 states' corporate policies, rewritten to protect employees who show basic humanity, congressional hearings about worker rights and ethical business practices, law schools teaching courses on corporate accountability, but mostly people remembering that individual choices create collective change, that feeding one hungry dog can feed hope in thousands of people who forgot they were hungry for goodness. Tell them, Sarah says into the intercom, we're exactly where we started, still choosing kindness over convenience, still believing that doing right matters more than doing what's expected, still feeding whoever shows up hungry at our door. She hangs up, walks to the window, looks down at the lobby where visitors read the mural study, the displays, learn about cases won and lives changed. What would you do, she whispers to the glass, to the city, to anyone listening, if you saw someone hungry and you had something to share? If you could choose courage over comfort, compassion over compliance, hope over fear, what would you do? The question echoes through the building, through the city, through every heart that's ever wondered if kindness costs too much. And somewhere in Phoenix, in Tennessee, in Michigan, in Ohio, in every state where the center has opened cases, changed laws, challenged policies, people answer with actions instead of words. They feed the hungry stand. Up to bullies. Choose what's right over what's easy. They remember that every great change starts with someone ordinary doing something extraordinary, like sharing half a sandwich with a stray dog on a Tuesday morning when no one is watching except everyone is watching, and everyone remembers, and everyone has a choice to walk past or stop, to follow rules or follow conscience, to surrender to systems or build better ones. Sarah Martinez, former grocery clerk, current director of the largest worker advocacy foundation in America, mother advocate. Reminder that heroes don't wear capes, they wear grocery store vests and torn jeans, and the kind of courage that costs everything and builds everything. They feed stray dogs on Tuesday mornings and change the world by Thursday. One act of kindness at a time. One choice at a time. One person at a time, until kindness becomes contagious, until courage becomes common, until doing right becomes as natural as breathing. The sun sets over Phoenix, painting the mountains gold and red, while in offices and warehouses and community centers across the country, people answer phones, file cases, challenge policies, stand up for those who can't stand up for themselves, all because a woman fed a dog and refused to. Apologize for caring, all because kindness chose to fight back. If this story moved you, like, share and subscribe for more tales of ordinary people doing extraordinary things when the world tries to tell them that caring costs too much.